clear. The transient data is finally here. We sync the interface, let the ideas commence. A digital download, it all makes perfect sense. A digital download, it all makes perfect sense.
Well, and there we go. Rather an abrupt end.
It's a pity it finishes, really, isn't it?
It's
interesting.
Yeah, like a freestyling for an hour. Anyway, welcome everybody to another digital download, the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live, now officially syndicated through the IBG, thank you, network on TuneIn Radio. We are delighted to be back with a repeat of our conversation or debate or bun fight about the agent-first reality, why your website, brand and silos are obsolete. And obviously we covered off some of this stuff last time, which is 3 weeks ago now, I think, because we've had a couple of interruptions through bank holidays and stuff like that. But we can pick that up and start to have a conversation. But before we do, let's go round the table and introduce ourselves. Tracy.
Good morning, everybody. My camera sorted itself out, so I'm really excited about that.
Excellent.
So choppy. I'm Tracy Borison, founder of TLB Coaching and Events and a proud partner of DLA Ignite. And I have many thoughts about the agent-first reality, as these guys both know. And if you're tuning in, you're going to find out pretty soon, too.
Tim.
Yes, my name is Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO of Digital DLA Ignite, and I'm famous for writing the book Social Selling and Influence, using social media for cold outreach and new business sales.
Thank you, Tim. And I'm Tim's business partner, co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm named on the same book that Tim just mentioned. So hurry on over to Amazon and treat yourself to a copy of that, should you not already have one.
Which I do.
Yeah, well, I'm sure everybody does. You know, it's like it's becoming a worldwide bestseller, isn't it?
Someone said to me the other day that they said to me a really flattering comment, which I guess is flattering, which is that they said you can read it in a day. So.
Do you know? I would like to think that's because the writing style and the way ideas are laid out is so clearly articulated that people only need to read it once and it just goes straight in, rather than having to say, I need to read that bit again.
Well, I think it's also
Helen says it's a belter.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Helen. So yeah, I mean, we covered off loads of stuff, and I think that you know, increasingly our weekly conversation about all things digital, and in fact sometimes things that are not necessarily particularly digital, is increasingly moving in an AI-woodly direction. You know, and Tim and Tracy and I have written about this at some length. You know, this is very .com boom and busty. Everybody kind of knows they've got to do it, but they're maybe not quite sure why they need to do it. And lots of people are investing huge amounts of time and effort and money in adding AI to the tools that they make, or to their workflows, or just buying licenses and distributing them across their business. And they're not quite sure why or how this is going to work. Maybe because they're bolting it on, maybe because they're not really committing to it, maybe because they're not an AI first business. But one thing we know for certain is that it's having a profound effect on how people do business, whether that's sifting large amounts of data to help kind of make decisions between lots of different suppliers, or whether or not that's creating those short lists that we also desperately need to be on if we're looking to be in the running for a piece of business or a proposal, whether or not it's encouraging people to create content that they can then publish through their digital channels, whether that's social channels like LinkedIn and Twitter, or whether or not that's publishing channels like Medium or GitHub, or on their own website even. So all of these different worlds are colliding, and AI seems to be a kind of focus for this. But it is having a huge impact on the working world at the moment. Yeah. Hi, Andrew. I trust you did wave back. So last time, I think we started with the conversation about the dying brochure, why traditional websites designed for human emotion are useless to AI agents. But you actually, before we go down that rabbit hole, Tracy, there were some things that you were itching to talk about last time, and go on.
I don't know. Tim told me last time I wasn't allowed to talk about brand as a prison.
You're allowed to talk about anything, Tracy.
Okay, so as you're doing your intro, Adam, and honestly, for those of you who know me, I move through things very quickly. What I was going to talk about last episode, it's long gone, but there's more things replacing it, so we don't have to worry about that. As we're talking about, like, let's talk about websites in particular, because we have it in the title, and we didn't really talk about websites last time. I think there's a lot of things that are happening that have an impact on how people consume content via a website. So AI is one of them. Now we have AI agents that are going out to look for information. They look for information different than humans. And so if humans are using AI to search for things, then it becomes part of the conversation that your website is no longer for people. Your website is for AI. But then we also have to think about all of the overall pathways or customer journeys that people are going on to get to our brand and where they live now, because they might have existed on a website before, but now if they're not going to exist on the website, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to take away that part of the journey. It means we have to redesign what that journey looks like. And so how we might have treated our website before isn't how we want to treat our website now. And when we originally had a website 40 years ago, when websites were the new thing, right? Like, that's not the case anymore. We can't design a website that way anymore. We are living in a world where every single company has a website, and we're not just like going to look for authentic marketing services, right? Like, no one's doing that. And so we have to pay attention to what the human behavior is, how the humans are using AI, and how do we make it easier? How do we be helpful for them as part of this process, instead of just saying, like, well, I designed my website 20 years ago and this is how we're going to do it because it was right then. I mean, to your own detriment, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. So when websites first came along, they were brochures online, and they were a way of getting people to look at your corporate brochure. That didn't require you to put one in the post or go and meet those people. But actually finding those didn't come along until later. So the idea of either promoting it and linking it to things, or Googling it or searching, and it probably wasn't Google in those days, or may have been. But the idea that you would then have to put on this extra layer of stuff that humans wouldn't see, or maybe wouldn't see, but that the search engine would, in order that you would show up in the search rankings. This was an add-on. And then after a while, and I remember that Selfridges, the British department store, one of the premier department stores, a bit like Harrods in the UK, it's only in the last maybe 7 or 8 years that Selfridges, that sells absolutely everything, Selfridges had an e-commerce website. Because before that, which is not that long ago, when every company has an e-commerce website, not that long ago, it had just a brochure online. You could see that they had a luggage department, but you couldn't see what the luggage was, although the brands were mentioned in there, and there was no opportunity to buy stuff. So you know, this is an evolution, and now we've got AI as a potential audience, a distinctly different audience to humans, but not the only audience. So in the same way that you wouldn't stop a website being attractive just because you're adding e-commerce to it, and you wouldn't stop at a website having your brand on it simply because you're SEO optimizing it, you need to make sure that it still attracts humans and is found through traditional search mediums and looks attractive and is easy to navigate, in addition to having AI as a potential visitor to that. And it may be that AI chooses and is used in a very different way to how you might use these things. But one of the things that we know for certain through our interactions is that before any deal is signed, a human has to sign it off. So at some point, the human is going to go and look at this stuff. So if you have optimized it just for AI and not for humans, then you're probably not going to get signed off at the end of the purchase process.
Well, and it's also interesting because like this is something I've talked about for a really long time when it comes to websites, is what is the website's job? You have a salesperson and you know what their job is, right? They have a job title. You have a marketing person, and you know what their job is. They have a job title. Websites have become this weird like catch-all where we're like, we'll just put it on the website and people will find it. No, that is not how it works. Knowing how you want your website to perform both in an AI search, which is mostly behind the scenes, right? And how you want it to perform as a pressure test mechanism. So Adam, what you're describing is someone's going to go to your website, make sure they feel like you're legit. But in order for someone to feel like you're legit, they're not going to read 80 pages of content, right? They're not going to do that. A human's not going to do that. The reason they use AI in the first place is for things to go faster. So they're not going to spend 20 days reading all the content on your website. There are moments that create trust between people. And honestly, a website is quite terrible at creating those moments. People are really good at creating those moments. Salespeople in particular are good salespeople, are good at creating those moments. And so this is the relationship between like, how do we puzzle all of these things together? And I don't believe there's like one right formula for everything, but when we know what our goal is as a company and we know how people are interacting with us, they meet us on LinkedIn and they go to our blog and then they search competitors with AI, right? Like this is you got to talk to people in order to collect that information. Then we have an idea of how we want all of these things to live in harmony with each other. Then we don't put so much pressure on our website to just be a dumping ground for SEO, which is quite honestly for a lot, especially tech businesses in the last 10 years is what it is. Well, let's put all the keywords on there as many times as possible.
Isn't that though, because so many people place such a high, have a high view of the word brand. So
I think brand is, I think a lot of people don't understand what it really means.
Well, yes. So a friend of mine has just opened a coffee shop down the road. She's turned 50 and she's decided to come out of tech and open a coffee shop. And it's called Cafe 50 because she's 50 years old. Now, she's asked me to have a look at her Instagram. And of course, what do you think she's posted on Instagram?
Pictures of coffee cups
So she's posted pictures of Cafe 50 and stuff because she thinks that people are excited about her coffee shop. We're not. We're excited for her. Yeah, and it's the same mistake that lots of people make, and you see lots of people. I've seen people when Kerry Cunningham posted the Sixth Sense report and said that people are now 60-70% of the way through the buying process. The response to them was, you need to spend more money on advertising because you need to get your brand in front of people that people are going to remember. I'm not going to remember any brand. I can only remember the fact it's Cafe 50 because she's my friend.
Right.
But I'm excited for her And in fact, and I kept explaining. I met her yesterday. I said, explain to her. I said, we're excited for you, and you are the person that we're going to come and see.
Right.
Cafe 50, and then you'll get somebody writing an article about Nike and Coca-Cola and Apple, and first and foremost, they're all B2C brands, and B2C isn't an example of B2B. I'll say that again. B2C is not an example of B2B because people still don't seem to understand that. And they say these brands are so important. Are they? They're not in B2B. So I think so. So anyway, so I think sometimes when we talk here, and the audience know that we quite often talk in an echo chamber of the fact that it's about life is about relationships, and the fact that I'll tell the story again. Adam just decreed it. Our website wasn't any good, right? So we agreed that we're going to change it. So basically, what we do is Adam says, right, we'll put a holding screen that just says we're changing the website, and if you need any information, give us a call. Because of internal politics, that holding screen was up for 18 months. It made no impact on the amount of business that we did.
Because the website doesn't have a job in the sales
Exactly,
process.
but Adam was always very he laughs about it because Adam was very relaxed about it. Was why would you send somebody to the website for the answer? Surely if someone is interested in you, actually Kerry Cunningham actually wrote about this the other day. Why would you send someone to the website? Because why wouldn't you because what you want is a conversation.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, what you want. So if somebody rang you up and said, just look at your website and it says, give you a call. So this is what I'm doing. That person is not an MQL. They're an SQL. Mm. If they're bothered enough to actually phone you up, they are qualified in. So in a way, I think we need to keep websites because if we go out and look at companies, we expect there to be a website from a human perspective because it kind of shows that there's a pulse.
Right.
But we now have two very distinct buying processes. We have a human one and we have a machine one, and we now have to be aware of the machine one. And the other thing about machines is they don't care about brand, they don't care about emotion. What they're looking for is just to get the answer. They're looking for facts and figures to come back and present to you what you want. So there's a massive revolution taking place.
Yeah, I mean, this was a really interesting comment that I can't see who you are. Sorry, LinkedIn user.
Yeah.
But if we aim for both AI agent and human curiosity, which pattern should we focus on? And how should the red thread through it all?
I like to call it the golden thread.
Yeah, but it's a really good question because I think that in a world where there's either or, and you have to do both of these things. I mean, I think that it's very easy to focus on the human element because that's the one that we're familiar with and the one that we understand. But I think that the danger that we face, not just in terms of how we develop our websites, but in terms of how we use AI, the danger is that we assume that if we've got something which is fundamentally useless and we paint it with an AI paint, everything will be all right. And we saw this with the .com boom and bust, didn't we? We saw people that had crappy businesses, crappy brands, crappy products. If we build a website, we'll be famous. And then the businesses went under and they couldn't understand why, because actually that was just a delivery mechanism. And the same is true of AI. It speeds you along the way. It does some research for you. It helps you sift large amounts of data. It may help you to compile a shortlist, but ultimately, if you go to AI and say, who are the 10 companies that I should consider if I'm buying in this space? And they already know you. They know that they really like Tracy. And they go, well, Tracy's not on the list, so I will add her to the list myself. So now it doesn't mean that the AI, because Tracy doesn't know everybody. So for many people that are
in Calgary, she does.
That's true.
Most people.
But if I don't know Tracy and I go and it says Tracy Borison marketing and events, and I go, oh right, I should consider her as well, which is great and it's really important. However, you can't get over the human element because that's going to come in at some point. You know, if ultimately someone's presented with a choice of dealing with me or dealing with Tracy, clearly they're going to choose Tracy. So the fact is that you have to recognize that the human is the gatekeeper before the deal is signed.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that is interesting about this is that the human still controls the prompt, right? So what the human is looking for is I think we think from a like even market research point of view that we can like collect all this data, right? Like we're gonna see what all of the like top Google searches are, and then we can figure out what keywords we want to optimize for, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, a person decides whether or not they want to search for authentic selling solutions or social selling solutions, or I hate social selling, what else is available, right? Like we don't control as a brand. I don't control how people phrase their searches. And so there's a lot of potential things that I could try to optimize an AI search for. Or this is where it comes back to where the brand becomes important. When I'm deciding where I want to show up, I decide, right? And then the people choose what they're going to search. I don't control what the people choose. They never will control what the people choose unless I have had a meaningful one-on-one interaction with them and they start to hear the sense of my words and then they start to search in my words.
Can I just say, yes, this is being recorded,
Yes.
and I will put a link to the recording, which will be on YouTube, in the various chats when we finish.
Cool.
It'll be there this afternoon.
So one of the questions that we had kind of toyed with asking was, if an algorithm doesn't care about legacy brands or emotional storytelling, which it doesn't, what specific parameters does it evaluate when shortlisting vendors? And I think that's a really interesting question to ponder, isn't it? Because I guess that, and you know, I'm sure that different AI platforms do this in a slightly different way. But at the end of the day, because AI can read everything which is on the internet and distill that down, I guess that the quality of your Google reviews, the quality of the recommendations on your LinkedIn profile, how closely your product offering matches what I'm looking for, how good the response is from testimonials from customers, and how closely my product specification fits with your needs. All of these go into a melting pot to decide, okay, this is somebody that looks like they are a good fit or they aren't a good fit. But I think we can safely say that you know, I want to buy from your company, Tracy, because I think your logo is really cool and I love purple. Actually,
nope.
Yeah, you know, that's not how AI makes a choice, even though that may be how
that's not how a human makes a choice either. Just fun fact. No one cares about your logo.
Yeah, maybe not. But you know, it might be that your brand, and part of that is that you wear funky headphones when you're on a call. And I really like that. And AI actually is completely ambivalent about that. It neither is a pro nor a con. And I think that one of the key things is that largely we hope, and this may or may not be true, we hope that AI is a fact-based rather than an opinion-based decision.
One of the changes that's taking place is the fact that up until this point, I don't know if you saw the announcement from the CEO of HubSpot over the last week, which is where she's recognised that the role of the CRM has basically changed. The CRM used to be the system of reference, because what you were doing was in effect tracking the buying process through the CRM, and salespeople were doing that. Now, what's happened is that the CRM has become just a piece of a back office piece of data, because the system of reference, or the buying process system of reference, is now basically the LLM. So ChatGPT, Claude, or whatever AI that you're using has become, because I'm going to there and I'm searching, it's remembering those things. And if you think about how many people are searching for goods at any one time. It could be millions or billions of people, and all of those millions and billions are going through a different, and so that's become the system of reference. And that's one of the big changes that's taking place.
And I think one of the things that's really interesting about this is that with CRMs, we got somewhat convinced that we control the funnel.
Yeah.
I'm going to put all of these steps in and I'm going to measure my stages, and that means I control the funnel, which isn't true, right?
Yeah.
And so it was doing that, and then it tricked us. And now we're like, oh, well, everyone is just using, first of all, their AI search engine of choice, right? Not the same one. 2, not all of them are based on the same platform, and everybody's getting different answers, right? So like, and some people who are curious, like I love to go and put the same prompt into 2 different AI engines just to see what the difference is. But it wasn't real. It wasn't a real control anyway. So now we've been back to reality to some degree, right? Like we don't really have any control over this, but we have influence over this. And so one of my favorite activities to do is to like go and search, like when I work with clients, right? Like who are the people who come up, top 10 companies in this category. And then, especially if your company is not in the list, ask AI why it's not in the list. Because then it's going to go to the website and be like, oh, because I interpreted this to mean this, and so I didn't put it in the same list. And you're like, oh, this is so helpful, because 1, maybe I identified a blue ocean opportunity for me that I haven't tapped into in terms of a competitive or creative advantage. But if I do also, like, I really want to be competing with these people, like the people who are choosing those people, I want them to choose me instead. Then you have the data that says why AI is not putting you in that consideration set, which means you also have all of the information you need to update your website to put yourself into that consideration set. So all of the market research is like right at our fingertips. We just need, like, internal marketing teams need to be doing that research so that you can make sure you're showing up in the spaces that you desire to show up
in. But I think also one of the things that we need to be really mindful of is that this is about you creating a persona for yourself and your business that attracts the people that you actually want to be having a conversation with. So, the mistake that most organizations make is that they deploy, and I use the word in the loosest sense, AI to solve specific problems that they have, but the way they enable the AI suggests that one size fits all. So, if you think about that in the consumer world, I want to buy a set of training shoes. So at one end of the scale, there could be something which is a purely fashion-based thing. It could be that I'm a keen basketball player, so I need a pair of Air Jordans or whatever. Or it could be that I'm a long-distance runner, so I need some trail shoes or whatever. Now, they're completely different products. And if I haven't told the AI who I am, what I do, what I need, it'll give me the generic answer, which is potentially the best-selling or the most popular version, or certainly the one that seems to fit most categories. And I think that the mistake that both businesses and individuals make is they assume that the AI is going to get this stuff, and it isn't. So if you sit down and you open your instance of Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever it is and says, tell me everything you know about me, and the AI says, I don't know anything about you. Okay, well then it's not a good person to be giving you advice, because it doesn't understand what your drivers are and what your objectives are. So certainly with what Tim and I are doing at the moment, we're investing a huge amount of time and effort in understanding how we can ground the AI at both a corporate and an individual level, so that the advice it gives can be poignant and targeted and valuable, rather than just a generic thing. And I think that this is a fundamental mistake that we see being made time and time again. And MIT, they did some recent research that 95% of AI projects fail. And this is exactly why. Because people log into, Anthropic or whatever, and they go, Claude, I'm looking for a blah. And Claude just goes, okay, well, I don't know where you are. I don't know who you are. I don't know the size of your business. I don't know what your industry is. So these generic things would seem to fit that. But in all probability, they won't.
And if you go to AI and you write a prompt, everybody's doing it. So that makes you average.
Especially if you're using someone else's prompt library.
Yeah. If you got some prompts from Forbes or
you're not even asking your own questions.
You've answered something on LinkedIn where you put in prompt and something. It just makes you the same as everybody else.
But I think I think that's a really important point, because a prompt is generally a set of instructions. So if I say to you, come out of your front door and turn west and travel 6 miles west, then travel 1 mile north, then turn first right, carry down there for 100 yards, and then it's the door on your left, you're going to end up in a very different place to me, even though the instructions may be perfectly. And this is the issue that we have. Not all people are starting from the same place. And I think that expecting an untrained, albeit incredibly knowledgeable and clever intern to deliver transformational solutions to your organization without any training is, when you say it like that, is just ludicrous. Nobody would even dream of suggesting that would work. Yet that is often what people do.
Yeah.
And our new CRM, it must have an AI element to it.
Of course.
And
because everything must have an AI element.
It's got to have what, Tim?
Medic codes as well.
Oh yeah, obviously.
And so I think there's one other important piece of the puzzle here that I think people, like the humans, don't quite understand about the AI. Let's look at prompt libraries, right? So people started creating prompt libraries. We did it because we're trying to be helpful and we want to make it easy for people to do prompts. The AI learns off of the human behavior. So if the AI sees that everybody's asking the same thing, it's going to assume that everybody's asking the same thing, right? And it's going to adjust its responses and its behavior based on, oh, this is the one thing that people ask in the category about how to update your website. It's not good data. So now we're not feeding good data to the AI. And so then we continue to get average data, but it's because we're also allowing ourselves to train it on average data. That actually doesn't help anybody from an AI training point of view. So, I mean, if you're using a proprietary AI, or you have a private instance of something that you're using inside of your company, then I would, first of all, highly encourage you not to use someone else's prompts, because you want it to learn about you, which would be ask it your prompts. But if you're using the bigger LLMs, they're being fed these things, right? And so it's important to look at that as well, just from an output point of view, is that are we teaching it what we want to be teaching it? Debatable.
No, we're not. But it's like the old joke, isn't it, of a guy that pulls up asking for directions and winds his window down and says, how do I get to the high street? And the guy that he stopped says, well, I wouldn't start from here if I were you. And, people are in a situation where they don't actually know, there is so much confusion around this. And the confusion is self-inflicted, because if you sit back and think, actually, what am I trying to get this thing to do? How would I implement that if it was something that I really understood? Well, actually, it's going to be a broadly similar thing. So one of the questions that Bertrand had written, who can't join us today, unfortunately, is if humans hold the legal and fiscal liability, which they do, clearly a human is going to have to sign off before the AI purchases something, won't they still default to safe legacy brands anyway, regardless of what the AI recommends?
That's another good question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bertrand is good at these.
Yeah.
So I, for one, think that this is a game of two halves, isn't it? So first of all, you have to be on the shortlist. So, if you're Salesforce, if we're talking about CRM system, for example, if you're Salesforce, you're always going to be on the shortlist. Not always chosen, but you're always going to be on the shortlist because everyone's heard of you. If you're a challenger brand, you're not always going to be on the shortlist. And if you're not on the shortlist, actually, you have no opportunity. So you have to be on the shortlist. And then it's down to relationships. And, there's so much fear that AI are going to replace people. but they're not. AI is not going to implement this solution in your business. AI is not going to train people how to use this and coach them through getting the results that they need. AI is not going to be able to say, this doesn't seem to be working. We need to find a different solution to tackling this problem around adoption or implementation or whatever it may be. AI can't do those things. And consequently, there are always going to be people in the loop, and the relationship bit is the key thing here. However, AI is part of the game as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that AI can't be sued, can it?
Not yet.
Well, unless it, there's something, if it's a decision that you made. So there's always going to be some sort of human in the loop in terms, and it's unlikely that if you're making a large investment in some sort of software or project, you're not necessarily going to go to the board and say the only way that I've done the due diligence is actually to look at AI. You would have spoken to people. So there's going to be a human in the loop, both on the buyer and the seller side. And then a lot of that is, why do people buy from people? Because it's to do with relationship. So what we're seeing is, I think that there will always be a reliance on a human. There always will be that human element, and so therefore we can believe that the governance of this is that the AI will be used for certain questions, but ultimately we're going to come back and use humans to actually go forward and make the recommendations to the board, etc.
Well, and even the concept of legacy brand, that lives in a human experience, right? Like, again, AI isn't going to be like, oh, Salesforce is a legacy brand, so I'm going to put them on the list because they're legacy. No, that's not what it's making its decisions on. The concept of legacy is a human experience. Yeah. So if I know, like, okay, Salesforce has been in the market for forever, they have something that's like keeping them in the market, so I'm going to put them in my consideration set. That whole decision process is a human process. It's based on other people have trusted this, and therefore it's probably safe for me to trust it too. It's funny because like the human in the loop scenario, I always find really interesting. Like, you can't take the human out of the loop. Like, we like to pretend we can take the human out of the loop, but how we're training AI is based on the humans. Like, all of the humans exist in the loop, and so again, we can ignore that, but to our detriment. I like what Tove had said about financial institutions, right? Because how most people choose their financial institution is based on who their parents choose as a financial institution. Not because they go out to market and check out all the banks and credit unions and all the things and choose the thing that's right for them. They choose it because their parents chose it, so it's got to be safe enough, right? And they don't even look at other options. And so again, when this comes back to what is the decision-making process, right? How do we make sure that we actually understand the decision-making process that our customers are going through? And how do we be in the places where that matters? If the only thing that matters for someone choosing my brand is that their parents chose it, right? Like, well, then very minimally I have to focus on getting the parents to move over and not like the younger generation, right? Like, and that's maybe for financial services, and then that's not relevant for all services. It's definitely not true for like B2B SaaS software, right? Like, that's not the case. The parents weren't making the decisions, like, is relevant. But then we're also like, what is the role of the business problem? Somebody experiencing a business problem, that's a human experience. Right? How I experience that business problem is uniquely mine, and I share it with other people, but like, it's not like programmable. And so again, like, this is not, I always feel like I like open the door instead of like close the door on a topic, but it's like all of the human components are complex, messy, unpredictable, uncertain, right? Ambiguous. And so we have to appreciate that we're playing in that playground, and that AI is very deterministic. And also, we're talking very specifically about like how people might use AI to find solutions right now. And there's like way more implementations of AI. So let's keep that in mind too. But like, it's very deterministic in this use case, and humans are not very deterministic, right? Unless we have that like feeling, that trust factor. So again, how are we making sure that all of these pieces of the puzzle are part of the conversation when we're exploring how do we want to meaningfully incorporate AI as part of our, I'm just going to say customer journey, because whether that's sales, marketing, support, all of these things, how can AI help our customer? How can AI be helpful? And how can it not be? And beware.
Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely right. But I think that the challenge is, as it always is, or invariably, it's a human one, isn't it? You know, so people employ AI within their business, and AI gives them an answer, and they look at the answer and they go, "Yeah, I don't think that's very good, but it must be right because the
It's
AI,
AI.
yeah, said it was right." And then they go forward with that, and that's their new basis of truth rather than their own knowledge. And I think, you know, Tim and I have been doing this for 10 years, not AI obviously, but we've been doing social selling and helping people develop a social presence for a decade. And one of the things that's amazing is how incredibly knowledgeable and powerful people have no confidence in their knowledge or power, and they're afraid to say something in case it's wrong, and it's easier to defer to AI. And Yayan made a really interesting comment here. Didn't we see a glimmer of a AI accountability earlier this week? There was something about if a self-driving taxi has a crash, the business making a profit becomes responsible. Clearly, it would be in California where that's happening. But I think that's very true, isn't it? You know, but I think that's absolutely AI not being accountable, ironically, because
It's Waymo that's
we're finding a route through AI to find somebody that can be culpable if somebody.
Even though self-driving cars are more safe than human-driven cars.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? You know, there's the what is the paradox about the train points where you can run one person over or 10 people over, and you have to make a decision. You've got to kill one or kill 10, and it's quite an easy thing for you to kind of rationalize, but you're still responsible for killing one. Move the lever to kill one person, and it's kind of the same. You can, you know, with self-driving cars, you can say there's a woman with a pram here, or there's a middle-aged man here. Which one are you going to run over? But you have to make a choice, and you can determine that. Whereas a driver, you never kind of rationalize in quite that way. You try to do what you can do, and you fail to acknowledge the inevitability of killing one. Yeah, if you get the car sideways,
because you would slide.
Yeah, but I think it is kind of it is interesting, isn't it? That it's that interface, it's that overlap in the Venn diagram where you've got the AI world, the world of stuff being, we hope, very fact driven, and something which is very automated, and something which is very quick, and something which is very researched. And I'm assuming when I'm saying this that it's not AI that is hallucinating or doing something wrong. And on the other side, you've got, as you said, Tracy, you've got people that are very emotional, that are not very logic based. And it's this kind of overlap where ultimately something has to take responsibility for these decisions and determine whether or not, yes, I am going to press publish on this, I am going to make this announcement, I am going to use this as my speech or whatever it may be, or I'm not. And it's kind of, as it always has been, one of, it's a question of empowerment.
Sorry, Andrew.
In fact, I'm coming up to run you over later today. But and I think it's really good that we kind of debate these things, and we have a talk about this, because whilst that thing about throwing the points, you're going to run the woman in the pram over or the man on the pavement as the choice, that's really binary and really straightforward. But what happens if this thing that I'm about to publish actually has a detrimental effect on the business and 1,000 people lose their jobs because of this? Ultimately, and in the tool that Tim and I are building at the moment, one of the things that there's a tick box before you can publish something that says, I have read this and I'm happy to publish this, because actually you're the one that's publishing this. You're the one that's making a decision that this is okay to put out. And yes, it can have gone through legal checking and regulatory, stuff and quality assurance. And it can go through all of these different processes, but ultimately somebody has to press publish, and that's you.
And I just like at that point, like, is this something you would say? Right? Like when we publish something, and I think this is an interesting thing for me, is this split people have between like something has to get published versus I published something, right? And when for example, if you post a piece of content on a corporate page, there's not a human associated with that. You don't go through that logical process of would I say this? So you get out of practice of asking yourself, would I say this? When we post something on behalf of ourselves, we have to look at it and say, like, is that something that I am happy to press publish on? Because and yes, most things can be deleted now, right? But like, is that something that I want associated with me as a person? And as a marketing industry, we have gotten so far from the person who presses publish, from the person whose brand it actually impacts, that we have taken out anything that could be meaningful. Right? This is why you get those brochure type posts, right? We're going to be at trade show ABC. We hope to see you there, right? Like, first of all, who is we? You don't even tag the people who are going to be at the show. So if someone happened to see that, they don't know who's there. Who are they going to meet? Nobody knows, right? Like, there's a safety, individual human safety in that. But in doing so, we get out of practice. And
it's worth asking the audience, does anybody get up in the morning and say, I'm going to go and see some company at a trade show? Does anybody do that?
What are you doing? I'm so excited.
Well, I'm really excited because I'm going to go and see this company at this trade show.
Yeah. I've not heard that many times, I can be honest. But I think that's the point. And I think that you've got, certainly when we look at how people behave across, let's say social, but it's all of their digital kind of footprint. When we see how people behave, you've got this kind of this tension, haven't you? You've got this tension between what I want to say. So I want to talk about me. I want to talk about my experience. I want to talk about what I'm hoping to get. Not I'm going to the trade show, but I'm or not to see this stand, but I'm going to the trade show. I'm hoping to bump into my old mate Tim for lunch. It's like that's the kind of thing that I want to post. And yet my company, that's exactly what they don't want me to post. What they want me to post is we've got a new product that's coming out, because that's the stuff that they are measured by. And I remember when I started at Oracle, Tim was already there. I said I had posted something, or I'd done a webinar, and my boss went absolutely nuclear. You can't do that. You've not had any media training. You can't possibly do that. It's like, but I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to say something, and Oracle's position on this is blah. That's not what I'm here to say. I'm here to say this is how these tools need to be implemented, and this is the value that they give. But it's like, so I looked into going down the media training route, and one of the guys, kind of like a mentor to me, he said, I think a really good use of your time is to not bother doing that, because actually it teaches you how to say things that say nothing, like a politician, because as soon as you have a position on something, you're in a position to be shot down. Yeah. And I think that's absolutely true, Scott. I think that for the most part, when you look at an AI post on any social network, it is just slop, isn't it? It's AI slop, and it means nothing, and it's got none of the personality of the person in, and it may be factually correct and grammatically correct, but it has no soul or personality. So addressing that is one of the key kind of issues of people that want to use AI.
Yeah,
No,
one of the,
I love this point.
that's a
That
really
Mike,
good point. Yeah.
when someone so AI drafted it, you posted, and then someone comes back and be like, "Remember how you said this?" And you're like, "Nope," because you didn't actually say it. AI created it. That one drives me nuts.
Yeah. Well, I know, Andrew, you're very partial to a show, and you like to post about how you're going to a show to go on various stands.
I think Tove makes a great point here. And like, I don't know that this is in every scenario, right? But there are a lot of people who have stuff they want to say who are not confident about how to say it. And so they think they need to use AI in order to generate it. I think it can be, we talk a lot on the show about going from 0 to 1, right? Like, if this is the first thing that someone can try to get their thoughts out into the world so they can start building confidence with it, I think that's great. It's also not the destination, right? It is a like very small step in the process that happens at the beginning to like kickstart the momentum. But if it becomes a crutch and all you ever do, I've said this to my clients who use specifically AI to write email newsletters, and I'm like, dude, like that doesn't sound like you at all.
No, and I think that the point that Tove makes here, she doesn't mind reading AI posts because the post came from the thoughts of someone. Well, the next word, maybe.
Right.
I think the reality is that you, when you say that, Tove, you're talking about quite a sophisticated level of AI usage. So I'm trying to get something out. I can draft an email or a post. I can put it into my AI and I can say, can you rewrite this so it sounds a little bit smoother, please? And then I can go through and I can read it and I can edit it and I can check it and then I can publish it. That's great. But most people don't. I still get the impression that most people say, I am a CRM vendor. I need a 500-word post about why my CRM system is better than anyone else's. Right? And then they cut and paste it without even reading it. And I think that, and I forget who it was that said this, but somebody said a great quote, which is, why I can't be bothered to read something that you couldn't be bothered to write. And
I love that.
Yeah, and I think it kind of sums this up, because what you should be looking to do is to scale yourself. So if your AI knows everything that you know and it speaks the same way that you speak, and you can point it in the right direction and get it to write posts for you, it's potentially a great labor saving tool, particularly if you're a bit of a perfectionist and writing a post for you is not a 5-minute job in the morning, it's an hour and 5-minute job in the morning. So enabling people that are in that position to do it is incredibly powerful and valuable. However, true, but I'm not most people. Yeah, absolutely right. You're not. And I think that that's a challenge. A lot of people in the audience, we know them reasonably well. And you're not a cross section of the people that we come into contact with in business. The fact that you're even on this show debating some of these points means that you've got a position on this and an opinion about this, and you're eager to learn about this, as we all are. And actually, most people aren't. Most people are, in my experience, lazy. There are different degrees of lazy.
Let's put that another way, which is that in most cases they're bringing their biases to the discussion. I think everybody here is open-minded and has an open mindset, whereas there's people bringing 20 years of biases. I made a call 20 years ago and got straight through to the CFO and made a deal. So why aren't you doing that?
Yeah.
And I think the interesting thing here is that all of these things, there are people they still work for, right? There's people who still do cold calling and it works for them because it matches them and they have a way of doing it, and that's fine, right? Like, that might not mean that works for you. And so this is why I love this show, is it helps people stay in the conversation to understand what is my opinion. We're not here to say you should never read something that's created by AI, right? Read it if you want, but that's the practice, right? That's the practice in authenticity. Go and read what you like, pay attention, what attracts you, what doesn't attract you, what attracts your customers, what doesn't attract your customers. This is a all learning by doing set of activities. And when we pay attention to what we're learning instead of getting caught in that, well, this worked 20 years ago, it's got to work now. It's not. I'm different. The consumer is different. The business is different, right? Like, why would I assume that what used to work is going to work forever? It's just not going to. So how do we make sure we evolve authentically towards what our goals are with our people, right? Like, our customers are not all people. The people who come to watch the show, right? Just what we said, you guys are not all people, and we love you because you're not all people. Right? Like, this is the point, is that you bring your people closer, and you do it your way. And your way and AI got to play together nicely now.
So,
spreading the news.
we need to wrap up now before Tim gives us a song. But this last comment from Scott, I would love it if everyone read what AI generated for them. I hope that they would learn how to write better. If it makes people better at writing and creating, that's awesome. And absolutely right. But, you know, Tim and I have been selling, and Tracy have been selling what is effectively training for a decade. And the fundamental problem with training is that it requires people to do something for themselves. You know, it's like the idea of going to the gym and exercising in order to get fit is scary because it requires you to work up a sweat and do something. You may be too young for this, Tracy, but I remember, and I know Tim will, during the late 70s, there was a craze for something called toning tables, where you would lie on this motorized table. It was largely over kind of women of leisure type thing. Lie on this toning table and it would move the legs up and down like that. And you could lie there reading a book and sipping your martini whilst this exercised you. And it didn't do anything, of course, because it didn't get you fit, because the process of putting in the effort is the thing that gets you fit. And the process of writing and interacting with these tools is the thing that makes you better and them better. And I think that the motto or the moral of all of this stuff is that there is no such thing as a free lunch. So we're at the end of the show, as we so often are. So thank you to everybody in the audience.
Thank you so much.
As you always are. If you would like to come on the show and join us for a chat or a fight, we would love to have you on. So please do scan the QR code, drop us a line, reach out to us and tell us that you would like to come on. And maybe you want to talk about your experience of deploying some of these digital tools and technologies. Maybe you're a naysayer. Maybe you believe that none of these digital tools and technologies are where the future lies. And we, as we always say, we don't believe that we've got the monopoly on good ideas. So it may well be that you're right and we're not. So thank you all very much. And until next week, goodbye and have a great week.